If you've ever had the urge to quit your job and book a one-way flight, then you've come to the right place. I was originally just going to throw together all of my footage, put on some background music, but I thought it'd be a lot better to talk through the adventure, not only for my family and friends who might know what's going on, but for me as well when I want to look back on this in the future. So here's my trip from Managua, Nicaragua down to Bocas del Toro, Panama. So I started my trip in Granada, Nicaragua. For my family's sake, I'm not even going to talk about how sketched out I was in the taxi ride from the airport to get to this town. Not to mention kind of whenever I walked into La Libertad. The reason I'm recording some of these hostels is to show my family that it's not what like they've seen in the movies and that they're pretty cool places. Not gonna lie, I sat up in my bed the second morning and wondered what the hell I got myself into. Will I be able to survive the next 30 days by myself and make this trip whatever I wanted it to be? Because I hadn't really met many people at this point. There wasn't very many that had checked in, but it ended up working out fantastic. So it's kind of like the little pool area, which I never even got in, where we could sit and eat breakfast in the mornings. We had ladies that made us chocolate chip pancakes, and some of us liked to steal the chocolate chips whenever they would disappear. So this was my first shower experience. Notice there's just a pipe that sticks out of the wall and one handle for cold water. This is Laguna de Apoyo. This is a laguna pretty much formed from a volcano. The water was super clear and very silky and smooth. One thing I learned very soon in my trip is that you could go from sunlight to a rainstorm in a matter of seconds. Oh, I miss the fruit so much. Later that night, we went walking around the town. There were some really cool places to see, but there wasn't a whole lot in Granada, so we took off to Ometepe pretty quickly. And this is the walk to the chicken bus. It was so hot, and I had way too much stuff in my bags at this point, which I would eventually have to mail home. This is a ride on a chicken bus. That's the little man that takes the money. The ferry over to Ometepe, that is the volcano that we will eventually hike. It was a glorious time. You see all of our bags kind of thrown on the back of the ferry, which you had to constantly be alert as to where your bag was to make sure no one else was grabbing it. That would be horrible. So here's a still shot of Ometepe Islands, the two volcanoes, and kind of a replica of what they look like. This is around the town of Moyogalpa, which is the first place that we stayed once we got to the island. Chicken buses were everywhere. This was the means of transportation in Granada, and they were really cool. They were just old school buses that were very decorated and cost like 10 cents to ride. So coming up, you'll see the Bandani Gang. This crew was awesome and who I'd be spending like my next week or so with through Ometepe and San Juan del Sur. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into at this point, and one thing we learned was to never trust Roberto, especially when he said,
It's about 4 hours, more or less, not exactly, but about. It can be 3 hours and 50 minutes.
4 hours, yeah. Anytime he gave you a time limit, he was lying. 30 more minutes, 30 more minutes, 30 more minutes. Ended up being about 6 more hours. You never knew what you were going to cross. Just a little bit of livestock here for you. The hike started off pretty easy, and we thought, sure enough, we could do this. Just listen to how enthused Danny was about this hike. He loved it.
This is the last hike I'm doing, period.
So this is kind of like the last bit of footage that I got because the hike got extremely hard at this point. There was a time where we were on all fours climbing up because if you were to stand up, the wind would involuntarily take you down to the bottom. So this is like 15 minutes from the very top, and we were absolutely miserable at this point. It had taken us about 6 hours to get here and would take us about 4 more to get down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Are you going to give us a documentary?
Yeah, so today is August the 16th.
We might not make it back down alive.
2017.
Come on, Mom and Dad, I love you.
Yeah. If anyone sees this, go Toronto Raptors.
Go the other way.
Enjoy the moment.
enjoy the moment.
Think about going back down. Don't think about, oh, this is it. Just take it in. 5 minutes. Take a picture.
A little bit more of a view from Moyogalpa. We stayed at that hostel right there across the street one night and then spent our second night here at Ometepetil. I don't know if I'm saying that right at all. So this is Little Morgan's. I highly, highly, highly recommend this place if you're ever in Ometepe near the Santa Cruz area. It was hands down one of my most favorite places that I stayed at. The environment was super cool. The people that I met there were very interesting and entertaining always.
Hola! ¿Cómo estás, bitches?
So yeah, I recommend this little treehouse type place if you don't mind snakes slithering into your room during the day or crawling into bed with spiders. It was just a lot of fun. They had 2 rules there. I think one was there are no rules, and then you had to drink out of your left hand. Here's our room.
Mi amiga.
What's
I
up,
want
dear?
the whole world to know how awesome Casey is. I'm a mess right now, but in real life I have my shit together. I want you guys to know that Casey has it going on. And she's really nice. Her humor is sadistic, but she means well. And Mom, if you're listening, you did a good job.
Aw. You're the best.
Okay, yeah, so I couldn't leave that part out. The only thing about this place, I wish we could have spent more time here. We only, I think, had 2 nights there. And like I said, a snake slithered into our room when we were sitting there talking, and then I pulled my pillow back at one point to find a big spider. Once you went down a little path, it took you straight out to the water. You couldn't really get into the water here, although we did see a couple people skinny dipping. This was on top of our bedroom area on the 2nd floor. There's some little chill hammocks. Then you can go all the way up to the bird's eye view. I'm sorry how shaky I am with the camera. Obviously can't hold it very still. But yeah, just super awesome views of jungly area. I loved it. Look at the piggies! They were the pets. This was a sweet little chocolate factory right down the road that we were able to walk to. It was delicious. So we got to do a tour of how they make their chocolate, which was really just in one tiny little room. And then my little bar that I had, which was awesome.
Why? Am I hiking again?
Yeah, after that first hike, I questioned my sanity, but this hike was worth it for sure. So a little backstory to this hike, we actually missed our bus in the morning and had to hitchhike to the entrance. Sorry, Mom. Then on the way back, we couldn't find a ride, and so we ended up walking probably close to 6 or 7 miles. But luckily, towards the end, we were able to find some locals and jump on the back of their bikes for just a couple of dollars. Otherwise, I would have died. This was us back on the ferry leaving Ometepe. I really wasn't quite sure if we were going to make it to the other side, and this one was a lot less reliable than the other, and the water actually started flooding in a whole lot more than it is in this video. So now we're in San Juan del Sur, where Sunday Funday is going to take place. This is a little parade out on the town that for all the local school children. This is probably where I was most miserable in a hostel. I ended up sleeping on the floor because it was so hot. Bandani Gang is back at it again for Sunday Fun Day. So what this was is if you've ever done a bar or pub crawl, this was exactly the same thing except for at hostels and pools throughout San Juan del Sur. The entire day was complete chaos. It's probably a good thing that my phone died and that the only thing I lost were a pair of flip-flops. Apparently on this next part, he didn't realize how far up we were, and I probably would have killed him if he wouldn't have gotten it on video because it was actually hilarious. So I guess this is my form of payback because those moves are on point.
What the fuck is he doing?
As if 2 hikes weren't enough, I decided to go on a third. This one wasn't as bad, and it was up to see Jesus. We're still in San Juan del Sur at this point. More hitchhiking wins. Sorry, Mom. Next move was to Playa Maderas. After dying in the heat at the last hostel, we decided to be a little bougie for a few nights. This is where I learned to surf, but unfortunately did not get any pictures or videos from that. Different hostel, but yeah, the heat was constantly killing me. Nicaragua was so hot. Finally, it was time to part from my group as I moved into Costa Rica. This is in Tamarindo, where I really don't have that much of footage or pictures because this was during Hurricane Harvey, so my mind kind of was not in the right place. All I did here was eat. Everything was so good. These waffles, the tacos. It's pretty much all I did was walk around the town and eat. Along with Harvey, I think one of my problems was that I'd had too much beach time, so I was very relieved to get back into the jungle. The weather here was so cool and nice. You didn't even need fans. And this is where I got to go on my zip lining, Superman, Tarzan swinging trip. This guy was crazy. So this was like one of the longest lines, so it required 2 people to be able to push all the weight down to the other side. He kept trying to get me to flip over, and I don't know why I really didn't. I was just being a chicken.
Oh my god, this is so scary.
Don't be afraid.
What do? I just swing?
No, listen to me. 2 hands over here.
It's just like bungee jumping.
Bend your knees a little bit. Bend your knees. Ready, go.
I have jumped out of an airplane before, and I think that I was more terrified and probably had more of a rush doing this Tarzan swing because in the very beginning of it, you didn't feel any pull on the rope at all. It's like you were just completely free falling. And then I was stupid enough to ask to do it again, and I am so glad that I did because then I was able to get a different visual of it as I put my GoPro on one of the guys' heads, so I was able to see myself swinging rather than just my views. So this is when I'm about to go again, and he wanted me to go backwards, but there was no way.
If you say so. Boom!
My heart still kind of skips a beat watching this. I would definitely do it again, but it was insane, and the video does no justice. So this is the Superman zipline. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you see me all Superman'd out. Monteverde is supposedly one of the best places to zipline in Costa Rica. I didn't zipline anywhere else, but I had a really great experience. This is Paco and Lola. So on my ziplining trip, I was fortunate enough to be paired up with this mom and son duo who were incredibly adorable and I had a wonderful day with. We went to one of the cloud forests after our ziplining was over with, which is something that you should not miss if you're in this area. I think this exact moment is when I kind of stopped and had just chills and tears almost swell up in my eyes because I realized how fortunate I was to be doing what I was doing and so glad that I took this trip for myself. I loved these butterflies, which were everywhere. They were completely camouflaged, except for when they open their wings, which you see the pretty blue. This is another one of my top places. I think it was called Mi Caciide in Monteverde. It's basically just a small house that was run by two young guys. A lady came in and cooked breakfast in the morning. The rooms were very comfortable. You didn't even need air conditioning just because the temperature outside at night was incredible. I had a couple of instances where it was pretty beneficial to make friends with the locals. I was talking to one of the guys in my hostel about how I really wanted to go climb inside one of the ficus trees and see the tree bridge. So he was cool enough to take me on his bike so I wouldn't be walking and wandering around the town on my own trying to find all of this, which in reality I may have never found on my own. So next was my Jeep trip over to La Fortuna where there was no Jeep involved, but there was a boat. So my adventures in La Fortuna consisted of a hike around another volcano, ending in hot springs and a waterfall visit. This is a little plant that would close up anytime that you touched it, and then these cool ants that were just carrying leaves to who knows where. This was our lunch spot. This is probably so mean of me, but these people smelled so bad, and if I were to get behind them during the hike, I would be so angry the entire time. Finally, we are at the waterfall. This was a pretty long day as well, although the hike wasn't near as bad as some of the others that I had done. I had a lot of fun getting behind the waterfall. It was so loud though and couldn't really hardly get my phone to work. I now have a new obsession, and that is whitewater rafting. This was probably one of my most favorite things that I did on my trip. I was so glad that I never fell out of the raft, although I did have a couple of close encounters, especially when they let me get on the very front because there wasn't much to hold on to and it was extremely slippery. As you can see, I did not last very long before I was falling off. At this next point coming up, I had lost my paddle and we were trying to get it someone to stop it, but we were in a really rough area. And then somehow our entire raft started going under, but we were able to get out of it. If you've never had guaro, which is made from distilled sugar cane, then I must say you are not missing out. I had to walk through the Salinas because this was the first time that I actually stayed at a Salina hostel. There's several of them throughout Central America and I think other places in the world, but I ended up staying at this one and another one in Puerto Viejo and then Bocas del Toro. And they're all really fun places. They're all pretty nice. This one was pretty much brand new. It had only opened up like a month or so before I got to stay there. So it was really refreshing to get hot showers for the first time and then have air conditioning in my room. Fresh ceviche is unbeatable. This is the backyard of Salinas where I actually saw my first sloth in the wild. I had paid to do a couple of hikes and tours where I was supposed to see them and then actually ended up seeing one here at night, which kind of makes more sense since they're nocturnal. I ended up skipping over a couple of towns that I planned to go to because I decided that I would rather go to Puerto Viejo, which is on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica towards the tip near Panama. Here I am at another Salinas. This was the view from my third floor dorm where I shared a room with 18 other people, and every night that I stayed there, every single one of these beds was full. All of these places that I stayed were no more than $12 a night, so you get what you pay for. The baby sloth. This is at the Jaguar Rescue Center. I was able to get up close and personal with some sloths, some baby sloths, and even some monkeys. So if you know anything about me, I was on the verge of tears the entire time. I think I forgot how fun it was to ride bikes. This was kind of the main means of transportation around Puerto Viejo. You could just rent bikes and ride around anywhere that you wanted to go. We had a lazy day one day at the hostel and just pretty much stayed in the pool and didn't really get out on the town much at all here. I promise you this isn't me trying to walk romantically down the beach. This is me trying to kick up the sand at Black Sand Beach so you could see its color. It still doesn't really capture what it truly looked like. Puerto Viejo was such a cool little Rastafarian town. I wish I would have spent a little more time there and actually explored, but I met some great people before moving into Bocas del Toro. Not exactly sure why we're dancing on the table, but this group of people were a complete riot, and so happy that I met them before Filthy Friday.
One thing to say.
Why don't you try being normal fucking
The only way
humans,
we
you
can
cunts?
overcome this is to get.
Sunday Fun Day. Now this is Filthy Friday in Bocas del Toro, Panama. This is an island crawl, so you're not hopping from hostel to hostel, you're moving from island to island around Bocas. After Filthy Fridays, I pretty much slept for about 24 hours, only waking up to eat. But I did get to spend my last day at this little beach, just a water taxi away. And this is where the adventure ends. I left Panama, flew out of San Jose, Costa Rica. Traveling alone is something that I'm so glad that I did. I met some amazing people along the way and learned so much, not just about them, where they're from, but about myself as well. So this will not be the last you see of me on my own. Until next time.